Hello, Michael here with Success for Others, and today I want to talk about repair versus replace. I mean, let's face it, in a lot of situations where our service technicians or comfort advisors or sales folks are in a customer's home, a lot of times that decision comes down to a matter of opinion, and it's typically that service technician or that comfort advisor's opinion as to what the customer trusts. And when we just look at the cost of the repair, and we weigh that against the cost of the new system, a lot of times we actually advise the customer to go ahead and repair it because it's going to be a lot more out of pocket today. And see, there's a big difference between that scenario when you look at it through the customer's cash position. So what I want to talk to you about today is just that, the customer's cash position when they're faced with a repair versus should they replace their equipment. And so we're just going to run through this, a couple basic numbers that you need to know. This is something that you need to really get your arms around and grasp. You need to practice it to make sure that you can walk the customer through their cash position before they make a decision as to whether they should go ahead with a repair on an older system or should they just look at maybe possibly replacing that system. So today's example is going to be repair versus replace. So on one side we're going to have repair, and on the other side we're going to have replace. Now there's only a couple of things you need to know when looking at this repair versus replace scenario. The first is going to be, what is that repair cost today? So how much does that customer need to pay today to get their existing system back up and running? So what's the repair cost today? The second thing that we're going to want to identify is, are there any manufacturer rebates, right? I mean, do we have any rebates right now this time of the year from a manufacturer? And if we do have manufacturer rebates, I mean, let's face it, they typically come in the shoulder months, right? The spring or the fall. Never do we ever see manufacturer rebates in the hottest or coldest parts of the year. And for good reason, obviously. They don't need to give you the manufacturer rebates then. So, if it's in a shoulder month, let's say we're doing a maintenance on a customer's house in the spring or the fall or during these shoulder months, manufacturer rebates are typically available, so we're going to want to know what that number is as well. And again, it'll just be an average. And then also, when we talk about rebates, let's talk about utility rebates. So does your local utility or power company offer any utility rebates that could be an extra incentive for the customer? Now, whenever I talk about utility rates with a customer, I don't want to tell them, well, listen, I don't know if they're going to be around next year. I'll tell them that, but in a very soft way. I don't want to use scare tactics. I just want to educate them on the facts. And the facts are that when a utility company no longer has money in that budget to pay out on utility rebates, they shut that program down for the remainder of the year until funds become available the next budget year. So, are they going to be around next year? Probably. Are they going to be in full effect for the whole year? Well, we just don't know. It all comes down to how many customers dip into that fund and take that money out of that kitty, if you will. And once that budget is met, the utility companies typically shut down that program for the remainder of the year. So that would be the utility rebates, and again, you got to check and see if they're in your area or not. And then the fourth thing that we want to look at on this is going to be utility savings. Now there's a number of ways we can do this. There's a number of ways that you can go about getting utility savings. You can use, a map that shows that. You can use manufacturer's information. I have my own way that I get the customer's utility information out. But the bottom line is you need to know what is it that the customer is investing on an annual basis to heat and cool their home annually. So, typically the HVAC usage is about 60% of the overall utility usage. So if you know the utility usage is X amount of dollars, you multiply that by 60%, and that would tell you what the HVAC portion of those heating, of those electric and gas bills are. So we want to come up with that number, we want to know that number, and a good time to get that number is more in the beginning of the call, not when we get into the repair versus replace cash position. And then the final thing that we want to look at is cost of doing business, right? I mean, let's face it, we are faced with inflation every single year. Cost of doing business is only going to continue to go up. And if you look at your costs and how they rise each year, you're probably going to see somewhere between a 5 and 12% increase in costs or increase in pricing to absorb those increase in costs as running your business. So, we can talk about inflation and talk about, increased costs of doing business. They're one and the same here for this example. So let's just go through the numbers real quick and see if this makes sense to you. But repair cost for today, let's just say it's a $1,000 repair. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter how old the system is. The customer is looking to spend $1,000 to get that system operational, back up and running, or to get it running back up to manufacturer specifications or in a safe manner. Now, their other option is they could replace their system. So let's just look at an average system today with that cost being $10,000. So they could invest $1,000 today to get their existing system back up to manufacturer specifications, or they can invest $10,000 today and replace their old system with a new system. Now, at first glance, from a cash position standpoint, this kind of makes sense, right? Well, geez, they can spend $1,000, they can spend $10,000. This is in the customer's best interest. And this is where we don't understand cash position. We're just looking at that initial investment and saying, well, it's cheaper today, so let's go with this rather than go with this. And we put that off for a year, for 3 years, or for 5 years, or however long you put it off. But what happens when we do that? I mean, how is the customer's money working for them when they choose that option? And we need to know this. So if it is during a manufacturer rebate time, I mean, they can range anywhere from, $500 all the way up to $2,000, right? So let's just say a manufacturer's rebate on a $10,000 system is let's just say $800. Well, if they choose to do the repair, they're not going to get that $800 manufacturer's rebate. And chances are, if this thing does break down again, and it breaks down in that hottest or that coldest time of the year, they may not be able to get that even when they choose to go ahead and replace their system, so they would lose that money today. The utility rebates also, if they went ahead and replaced their system today, they would get that money. But if we're going to repair, the utility isn't going to give you any rebate to repair your system. And those can range anywhere from $150 up to $800. So let's just say a utility rebate in your area is good for, let's just say $300. Just to be safe. And if you don't have that, then you don't have that. Utility savings, again, it's a 60% of the overall bill. Let's just assume our utility savings are based on 30% savings over their last year's bills. So if they were investing, $1,500, then at that point we could save them 30% of that would be $450 over the course of 1 year. So utility savings, they wouldn't get with their existing system because it's the same system as what they've been using, obviously. But with a new system, they could save, somewhere around 30%. I mean, I know the brochure says up to 50, but again, I don't want to paint an exorbitant number here. I just want to come up with numbers to get us to see if this even makes sense. So 30% savings of $1,500 would be $4,500. And then inflation, I mean, we already kind of went through that. It could be anywhere from 5 to 12%, but let's just say 3%. It makes for easy math, but it also is extremely conservative, right? Cost of doing business is going to go up year after year after year, 3%. So on $10,000, 3% of that is going to be $300, right? So if the customer chooses to go ahead and do the repair today, which they can do, they're going to be in a negative cash position when, at the end of 1 year, they're going to be in a negative cash position of $2,850. So that $1,000 repair actually ended up costing them $2,850 if they wait 1 year to replace their equipment. Okay? Now, had they invested the $10,000 in a brand new system today rather than doing the repair, well, they would have gotten the $800 in manufacturer's rebates. They would have gotten the $300 in utility rebates. They would have gotten and enjoyed the utility savings of $450 that are associated with that new system, or whatever that number is. They wouldn't be paying 3% more down the road, so they would save that $300 this year as well. So at that point, the customer's cash position, after laying out $10,000 this year, 1 year from now, would actually be a negative $8,150. So you see how that lines up there? They're a negative $2,550 or a negative $8,150 if they wait just 1 year. So let's look and see what that looks like in years 3 and also in years 5 from a cash position standpoint. Now, if we wait 2 more years and we wait 3 years to replace this equipment, we do the repair today, we put it off for 2 more years, that would give them 3 years out. You're not going to get the manufacturer rebate or the utility rebate. You can't use those numbers again for years 2 and years 3 because they already got them in year 1, right? So you got to kind of take those off. And also the repair. They already paid for the repair this year, so they may have future repairs, which we're not going to include in this example, but keep that in mind. They've already paid the $1,000, so that's not going to be compounded over the next 2 years either. So the only thing we're going to be looking at is this $750 here, and we're going to multiply that by the next 2 years, which equals $1,500. And the reason why we multiply it by 2 is that's going to be for year number 2 and year number 3. Okay, so they would have gotten another $450 of energy savings for years 2 and 3 in addition to year 1, and they would be guarded from inflation over the next 2 years as well to get it to that 3 years. Now this is also, understand, at today's utility rates, and typically utility costs are on the rise across the country, and I don't expect that to change, but again, I want to go super conservative. So this is at today's utility rates. So that $1,500 to wait 2 more years and to wait a total of 3 years would be added to that $2,850. So if we add that to that $2,850, 3 years is going to be a negative cash position of $4,350. Okay, versus they would enjoy both of these things, right? They would get the utility savings as well as be guarded from inflation had they just put the $10,000 system in now. So in years 2 and 3, that would be additional savings to them as well. So that would be $1,500 less. So that would be a negative cash position in year number 3 of $6,650. So they can be negative cash position $6,650 to wait 3 years, or a negative cash position of $4,350, depending on what decision they made. If we roll that out another 2 years to 5 years, right, it'd just be the same thing, the $1,500 on both of these numbers because it's 2 more years. So that would bring this down to a negative $5,850, and it would bring their cash position on the replacement side down to a negative $5,150. And look at these 2 numbers right here. I mean, this is important. If we wait 5 years, if we just wait 5 years to replace this system, and we do this $1,000 repair today, the customer's cash position over the next 5 years is a negative $5,150 versus a negative $5,850. It makes more sense for them. Their money is working better for them in the replacement option than it is in the repair option. Does that make sense? Okay, so when you understand this, when you start to look at what the customer's money is actually doing for them, you can better advise your customers to make an informed, educated decision as to what's right for them. Because just because this repair is less than the initial investment of a new system today does not mean it's in the customer's best interest to go ahead with that repair. And again, this number is not including additional savings on utility bills as the utility costs continue to rise over the next 5 years. It's not including any additional repairs that customer is probably going to experience over the next 5 years in this existing system if they keep it. And the other thing we got to keep in mind is, let's say after 5 years they say, okay, let's go ahead and buy that new system now, and they invest $10,000 5 years from now into a new system. Well, now you have to add that $10,000, this $5,850, and they're actually going to end up spending almost $16,000 for the exact same system they could buy today for $10,000. So when you're talking with customers and you're educating them on all their decisions and all of the things that go into this decision, you need to be able to walk the customer through their cash position so that they understand exactly what's best for them. It's not our decision to make, it's the customer's decision to make. So at the end of the day, I hope this was helpful. You need to memorize how this works. You need to practice this so that if you're faced with a customer who asks you, hey, can I get another 3 years out of this? Can I get another 5 years out of this? You can walk the customer through this and tell them, listen, I don't know. I mean, I'm a certified technician. I can keep this running as long as you let me. I just don't know if that's in your best interest. Let's go through and look at look at this from a cash position standpoint, from your cash position standpoint, Mr. Customer, and see which one makes the most sense. And go through 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years, and get them to understand that by investing in their home comfort system today, that it's actually a much, much better decision than it is to put it off and just do the repair now. And let's face it, with financing options out there and financing being so readily available again today, in today's day and age, that, I mean, $10,000, most people you can get on a 60-month term with a low fixed interest. I mean, cheaper than what they could do if they put it on a credit card. They could get it for 6.9 or 7.9% interest, which is better than what they can find on most credit cards. So this money, they don't have to have in their bank account right now today. They can finance that out over the next 60 months through a finance program that you have in-house, or you have something, you have a partnership with one of your financial institutions. So they don't have to come up with this either today, but it is in their best interest to go ahead and have the installation done, just from a cash position standpoint. So I hope again that makes sense. If you have any questions on this whatsoever, please, please, please feel free to contact us. You can reach us on our website at www.success4others.com. If you haven't connected with us on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn yet, please do so. Again, my name is Michael Goder with Success for Others, and we'd be happy to help you any way possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. You have a wonderful day.